Hello, everyone. Welcome to our intermission program. We're so happy that you joined us. I'm joined again today by the lovely Summer Forlenza, LMFT. Hi, Summer.
Hi.
And we are so excited today because we're like, what topic do we want to do before the holiday? And we decided to talk about boundaries.
Mm.
So we'll just have a conversation and see where it takes us. Um, Hopefully this will help some of you out there getting ready to go see family or be with family. We know it can be a tough time. It can be a tough time for people who don't have family. So we just want to name that.
Maybe we could start out with like the purpose of a boundary. Some
Yes, I love
That's
that
always a good
idea.
one. Okay, good.
Good. So when I'm thinking about this time of the year and I'm thinking about why boundaries felt like an important thing for us to talk about, it kind of goes back to the purpose of a boundary for me. And I think a statement I like to bring myself back to is my boundaries enable my relationships, right? So my boundaries aren't there to push people away, to keep people separate from me, to isolate. My boundaries are there as guidelines that I follow for myself that allow me to connect to and be close with the people that I care about in ways that are
Right.
safe for me, right? So they enable my relationships. And my guess is that folks who are listening to this probably have somewhat complicated relationships with maybe their family, maybe their partner's family, people that they're going to be seeing in this season. And so starting to reflect on, all right, what am I going to do when or if things that are uncomfortable for me happen around these relationships in order for me to be able to not in order for me to be able to stay in relationship with them? What do I need to enable this relationship?
Yeah, I like what you said there too, to allow you to stay in relationship, to stay in that sense of like, this is something I'm intentionally going to do, go to be with family or friends, and I'm going to take care of myself. And I think that's such an important concept that we actually have more control. I think a lot of times we get in these situations and then somebody says something, there's a trigger happens, and we feel like there's nothing we can do. But we are talking about actually thinking about it before you go to the event or whatever it is, about like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
how do I want to show up here? What's important to me? Which I think that was one of the things we talked about, like what is important to you about the holidays? It's such a thoughtful thing to think about. We can really get into these like, this is what we have to do. These are the things that are kind of like required obligation. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but there's also some beauty and grace sometimes in it. And also, if there's not that, just that feeling of like, this is something that I want to do, I'm going to do. Um, I feel like that's important
Yeah,
too.
I think so too, because, one of the things that I think about and I talk about with my clients as we're approaching the season is coming back to this question of like, why is it important for me to be at this event with these people, right? And in
Hmm.
this community? Why is that important to me?
Hmm.
Sometimes the answer is it's important to me because I want people to see me as a good daughter or a good wife or a good, family member. And
Hmm.
if you're going into a situation where that's your reason, your why is I want to be seen as a certain thing, but you're going into a situation where you're going to be hurt or pushed or maybe be uncomfortable, that might
Hmm.
be a moment. I just want to invite curiosity for folks who are in that space to be like, is that aligned with what actually matters to me? Now, a lot of times we end up noticing, like, okay, well, I want to be at this event because I really want to spend this time with my grandparents. I want to spend this time with my siblings. I want to
Hmm.
have create some memories with my nieces and nephews, with my kids. We have this experience of this actually does matter to me. On like this
Hmm.
time is important. And then we can come to, okay, so I know this matters to me. What am I going to do to take care of myself before, during, and after so that I can
Hmm.
be the best version of myself that I want to be while I'm here and really get out of it what I want?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a good distinction, the before, during, and after. So
Mm-hmm.
let's just maybe we'll talk a little bit like before would be um doing some of the the just the thought like, is this something that I want to do or why do I want to do it? But also some of the busyness of the holiday, we can just run right into a Christmas party and then the triggers and the things hit us because we're like, we've been running trying to get everything done. So maybe some self-care would be like to take a little time before the event.
Yeah, I always think, if I'm working with folks who are going to be going to an event where they're going to have to interact with someone who makes them uncomfortable or who maybe has hurt them before, where there's going to be some mixed emotions about your experience with them, I always like to think, all right, what can you do before to make sure that you're coming into this event as calm, as grounded, as prepared as you can be? Is there some bring with you to the event who's going to help support you? Is there a friend or a partner or another family member who can sort of be your partner and you can talk to before? Is there some sort of self-care routine, some sort of exercise, or like a long, nice like shower, something that's going to help you feel really good before you go in? Just to sort of say, I know I'm already going to be a little on edge, a little nervous, a little worried around certain folks who are at this event. And I'm going to make it my responsibility to prepare and to take great care of my body and mind so that I'm ready to be there and encounter that challenge, because I know it matters enough to me to be here that I'm willing to encounter the challenge. I also like to tell people, and I know we're skipping ahead a little bit, but I also like to tell people you prepare before and then plan something really nice for yourself afterwards, almost like a little reward for doing the hard thing, right? Whether that's like a holiday movie that you're going to save, it's your favorite, you're saving it for right after, or a special holiday treat, or, going to look at Christmas lights, or there's something that you really like to do, you might save it for after the more difficult event that you might be going to. Because that can help you sort of wind down from anything that was difficult.
Well, and it's also, it's going back to that thoughtful, like, I have some control over this. So if you know that sometimes family events can be draining, you can plan, okay, maybe I won't plan that lunch, or that even if like, let's say you have to go to work or something's happening right after that, where you can like kind of buffer yourself a little bit. I think that's good too. And that goes along with boundaries, because boundaries are like, how do I keep myself safe? How do I keep myself, like kind of like protecting your peace is one of the ways that I talk about it sometimes, is that like, what would feel good? What is okay for me and what's not okay for me, which is the boundary work. It's like, what's okay, what's not okay. So what about like in the event, like, do you have any, like, how do you talk to your clients about like, as triggers happen, we, at the end of the day, we have our amygdala, which is going to get triggered, and we, as zen as we think we can be, or we cannot always control, we just can't control, we can control our reaction, we can learn how to, but like, I don't know, do you have some thoughts for in the event, maybe that one person that always knows what to say that makes you feel not so great?
Yes. Yeah. Like one of the ways I like to think about it is your body and brain are going to have a response to certain upsetting or triggering situations and people, right? You talked about the amygdala. You're not that you're choosing it, but your mind and body are very likely to put you into more of a defensive position if they perceive that you're under some sort of threat. So if there's a person in the family or a couple people in the family who you've had really negative experiences with before, you've been hurt by before, it makes total sense for your body and brain to be a little on edge and like a little ready to shut down or pop off around that kind of person. So what I like to think is, all right, can I think about boundaries? What do I need to take care of myself during when this happens? Not if, like when I start to feel a little more defensive, a little more on edge, what am I going to do to take care of myself? Am I going to remove myself from the situation for a moment? Be like, all right, I'm going to go to the bathroom. For some folks, I have them prepare a little, like almost a little makeup bag or something that has a couple of grounding objects or things that help them with grounding and stress they can take with them. So maybe like a scented oil, sour or spicy candies are sometimes helpful with this. Something they can touch with their hands. You might like prep a little of like, all right, when I take my bathroom break, I'm going to do a couple of these rituals, just calm myself down, bring myself back to why do I want to be here? Why is it important to me to be calm and grounded? You might do that. You might prepare ahead of time. What are some like boundary statements that I can make of like, oh, I'm not comfortable talking about that.
Mhm.
Or just no, thank you. Or
Mhm.
exit strategies, right? Like, what are you going to
Right.
prepare for some of those folks?
Yeah,
And
those are
another
good.
thing I like to think about, thank you, when people are going to events is, can you like hold something cold to drink? Because
Right.
cold water is really calming, right? So can you hold something in your hand, just take a nice sip every time they say that thing or that
Mhm.
topic comes up. Just like, again, thinking it's my job to take care of my brain and body in a way that allow me to be the person I want to be when I'm here. I cannot expect other people, if people have shown you who they are, believe them, they're going to keep being who they are. It's
Mhm.
my job to do what I need to do to stay calm as best as I can here.
Yeah, you touch on a few things there.
Mm,
That thing I want to just say again is, I guess I have a question is if for boundaries, for the majority of boundaries, can I say to myself, what do I need here?
mm.
And and then I go to finding like what would work for me. But is that a good way to frame boundaries? Like, especially for beginners, like we're hearing a lot of talk about boundaries, but they're kind of tricky to get a handle on, like, what does that exactly mean? And it doesn't mean shutting people out or building a wall. It's literally more, I think I've seen it described like a swinging door or a window where we can shut it if we want, but
Mm.
that a good question to ask yourself, like, okay, what do I need here? And versus like the reactive state, which would be like, you know, I'm gonna remove myself, like I'm not coming back here, which that's a very common trigger is,
Mm.
that pushing away, depending on, when we get into attachment, but like pushing away or like, pretending it's not happening. Like there's all these things that we use that we cope with, but I'm just wondering, like, yeah, is that a good question to ask ourselves?
100%. Yes. Like,
Okay, great.
what do I need can be the first question that we ask when we're starting to think about our boundaries. And, something you're right, like boundaries get a lot of conversation now. And I don't think folks always
Right,
totally understand what they mean and what is that? And is it just
right,
like blocking people out? And what I like to think about with boundaries is boundaries are not rules that I'm asking other people to follow.
right.
Boundaries are ways that I am going to respond if things happen that aren't okay with me or that are unsafe for me or don't feel good to me, right?
Mhm.
They are like, sometimes I think of like they're agreements we make with ourselves of this is
Mhm.
what I will do to take care of myself
Yeah,
and this is how I will respond.
right. And it's not about controlling the other person's behavior because we can't do that. So it's not like
Mhm.
you can't yell because that's my boundary. It's more like if you yell or you say these things, I'm going to walk away or I'm going to leave. And whether
Mhm.
you choose to say that to the person or not is really, that's up to you. And it depends on the safety of the person, and everybody's family is so different. So everyone has to kind of decide, but that's really what that is like, okay,
Mhm.
if Uncle so-and-so says that thing that I've asked him not to say, I'm going to leave the conversation or I'm going to excuse myself to the bathroom or whatever. But like,
Mhm.
not, there's nothing we can do to change Uncle, but we can change like our response to it. Um,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yes, 100%. I can't change
yeah,
other people. I don't have control over what they do. I have control over how I respond to
right.
what they
What I
do
respect.
and how I
Hmm.
communicate to them about what I need and how I'm feeling and who
Right.
I decide to communicate with.
And who I decide. Yeah. And you gave us a couple tips there about rituals. And I've been reading a
Mhm.
lot of information about, like, there's a lot of research out there about rituals and how we've always had them, and we need to create rituals. So the ritual of, um, if you have a cold drink, this could become a ritual. Like every time I'm in a family situation and might have a drink in my hand, I'm going to pay attention to, you know, the temperature or how my hands feel, or like you said, excuse myself, go to the bathroom, take a walk, step outside. I mean, these are kind of ritualistic when we do them on a continual basis, and this is what gives us choice, is that we're able to like say, okay, I know I can feel myself getting reactive, or so and so's come in and I know how I feel. I'm going to give myself a time out or a break and let
Mhm.
myself then come back in a different way. Not that we should have to remove ourselves, or we're not talking about grossly abusive people. We're talking about triggers that are happening in families. So I liked what you said about rituals because I've been thinking a
Mhm.
lot about that.
Yeah, and
I-
I think it's such a cool way to think about your self-care is like, how can I make this a bit of a ritual? Because you're right, human beings have had rituals for as long as we've existed. It's very
yeah.
innate to us.
And somebody said this, and I'll have to see if I can find it to give credit when we post, but it was something about it's like 6 seconds, 6 times a day, I think. But like that you just pause and just you're like, okay, how am I doing? Okay, yep, I got a little nervous, had a lot of things going on, but I'm feeling okay right now. And that we can do them anytime during the day, that checking in with ourselves will create a more habitual response of having control, of having a little bit of space. I always say it's a little bit of space, because when
Yeah.
we're in it, it feels like we are the thing, doesn't it? Like, whatever comes on for you, like we all have the messages that we've gotten from family, and we repeat them when we get into family, even if we feel like we've worked through them or we have worked through them in other areas of our life. They can really pop up on us when we are with family. So.
Yes, I sometimes tell people, our family knows best how to push our buttons because they're the ones who installed them, like.
I love that. Oh, yes, exactly. It's so true.
And so that is like, I just try to
Right.
normalize for people, like, of course, certain family members are the most difficult people for you to be around. It's not because you don't
Right.
love them or care about your family. It's because you have a very long history from a very young age of feeling
Right.
certain things or being asked to play certain roles.
Mhm.
And sometimes family doesn't really understand or can't really get with you changing and evolving from that. And it can be difficult for them to see you as an adult now, or see you as a different kind of person than you used to be, and approach you that way.
So true.
So
Yeah.
normal to feel dysregulated and a little upset and anxious about certain family members at the time of
Yeah.
year.
Yeah. And I would wager those that are taking the time to watch this, because the topic is boundaries and holidays and family. So I would say the people who are watching it are the ones who are saying, yeah, I'm becoming more aware of myself. I'm really curious about, why I respond in certain ways, or I really don't want to respond in those ways as much as I can. So I feel like that's our audience right there, because not everybody is interested. So, sometimes our families don't evolve when we're evolving, and we have to adjust to that, or not. I mean, I guess people have that choice of not being around family, and I'm sure lots of people are making that decision and have made that decision. So I'm sure we're getting all kinds of different families that are watching this, but yeah.
You're touching on something that I think is so important, which is, I think we talked about obligation a little bit ago, right? And like how a lot of folks can feel really obligated to go through to jump through these certain hoops and do these certain things because that's what you're supposed to do at this time of year. And while there can be a lot of grief in recognizing my family's not safe for me to be around, I also just want to like honor and respect the folks who do make that decision, because I don't know a single person who's ever made that choice who did so easily.
No.
Right? If that's where you find yourself, it's been a very difficult road to get to that place.
Yep.
And so if your boundary is, I'm going to spend these holidays with my chosen family, not with my blood family, like that is an absolutely valid boundary for folks. And I always try, I always have trust that that's the right choice for that person that year, if that's what they're making. So if there's anyone who's watching who's feeling a type of guilt or shame about not spending time with blood family at this time of year, I just want to like send you respect, because you've made a really hard decision to take good care of yourself in a way that can feel really sad, but I trust is important.
Yeah, I think that's really important for people to hear, because I think when we get into the obligation space, it's another place to look, like, and we have to update ourselves over time, right? Like something that you felt in your 20s was really important to you might change as you get older, and that's okay. And finding the time to like check in and like, how do I feel about this? How do I want to be with this? Do I want to create rituals that are different than what my family's created? Or do I want to create rituals that help protect me when I go home and make me feel safe? Or, yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
I always think our conversations are just, if they're like pointers to get curious, right? To like just take a little look at like how you feel when you're in these situations, and make those feelings, like honor those feelings, right? Like those are real. Like if you feel if you're feeling scared, or if you're feeling lousy, or if you're feeling like there's something wrong with you, those are all clues for you to,
Mhm.
it's like that's the, it's like pointing to the door, like over there, that's there's something there for you. So I know I feel like I say it almost in everything that I'm doing now, but I really think it's, we can spend a lot of time trying to work with symptoms that are really just clues telling us like, hey, hold on a second, I'm having a response here, you know. And we had touched on that about response versus reaction. So maybe we could talk a little bit about that, like how to notice what's a response and what's a reaction.
Ooh,
Do you have any thoughts
yes.
about that one?
Yeah. And it makes me think, what the way I talk about this sometimes is like, your emotions are data, right? This is data that your
Right.
body and brain are sending
Great.
you. This is information. Let's use it, right? So your body and brain are going to be what are responding. They are the ones who are going to be like, ooh, I'm going to respond by making you feel anxious, by making you want to shrink away, by making you feel
Mhm.
angry, by making your heart beat faster, by making your
Mhm.
hands shake a little. This is all the ways that the body responds. And when we have these responses and we have these sensations in the body, these emotions, that causes us to want to react in a certain way, right? So the
Mhm.
reaction is the communication that I use, the way that I actually interact with people. I'm reacting to my responses.
Right.
And I love what you said about those like 6-second pauses of, all right, can I
Yeah.
notice, oh, I'm feeling really anxious. My heart is beating fast. I'm starting to sweat a little. When I feel this way, I want to ditch the party entirely and just leave. Or I want
Mhm.
to start a fight about politics with my uncle. Or
Right.
I want to, whatever it is,
Right.
right?
Right. Right. It
And
happens.
yeah, yeah, oh yeah. We can catch it and be like, okay,
Yeah.
this is what my reaction wants to be. Is that
Mhm.
who I'm trying to be here today? Is
Mhm.
that going to help me get out of this event? Why the purpose for me being here? How can I come back to my why? How can I come back to my values so that, all right, what do I need right now to cool this down a little so that I can move and react in a way that I want to react?
Right. And then we're back to choice, right? Because then
Mm-hmm.
it's like how you get to respond is in versus like how we often are, which is we don't think we have any control. And we're like, well, I said the thing. And it's like, well, there's actually things that we can do to help us give a little bit of space. Not always. Like I recently saw a video on TikTok that was talking about, you know, like kind of like the downside of what we're hearing about regulating your nervous system is like
Mm-hmm.
you can't be in the perfect zone, and our families are going to trigger us. We are going to get triggered. We're all human. We've all experienced some sort of trauma. It's a human experience to be in a situation and feel like I really want to react like that. It's a very human, and what we can learn to do is just do the pauses. I think that's what the 6 seconds does, is the pause, which gives us the space. It gives us a little bit of space when we're sitting there like with the uncle or whoever and saying, okay, do I want to, how do I want to respond here? And does it, I love what you said about values, because I just don't think we think about this enough. And we don't, I think so many people have really good values, but our behavior doesn't always match because we're not checking in.
Mm-hmm.
And we've never been taught. So, like, I don't want to shame anybody. Like, we're all doing this. We all respond in ways that we're like, oh, I really didn't want to react that way. But nobody's really teaching us until, we're well into adults. Like there's a lot of adults
Mm-hmm.
trying to learn this now. Like, do I have a choice? What can I do to feel better? What are my options?
Mm-hmm. I really appreciate you talking about it this way, because part of what I'm thinking about is, yeah, so many of us are trying to learn these as adults. We don't have models around us who are teaching us or showing us
Right.
how to be upset and also communicate in a kind way, right? Maybe everyone
Mm-hmm.
around us when we're growing up, when they're upset, they get mean. And that's just how it
Mm-hmm.
always is. That's a thing. And so what I think about when I'm working with adults now is your job is not to be perfectly regulated at all times, because you're
Right.
never going to pull that off,
Right.
and that's not very human. That's a very robotic way to live.
Mhm.
But sometimes your job is to notice, wow, when I got dysregulated, when I got really upset and I did this thing, I regret what I did. And your job is not to be perfect, but you can come back and repair after you've done something that you don't feel good
Right.
about. And
Yeah.
that is always an option, to be like, hey, I'm sorry how I spoke to you, just a moment ago. I
Right.
got a little bit upset. That wasn't very kind of me,
Mhm.
and you can just own it, apologize, repair the rupture, and then keep moving. That's how all relationships happen all the time.
Yeah. Well, and I think we're into something that's really interesting, because again, we're not all taught how to repair, right? Some families,
Mhm.
there's open fighting, and then what I hear a lot is families who there's fighting, and then there's silence, awkward feelings, and then somebody, something breaks it, and then they're back to normal until that happens again, right? I think that's super common. And so just like recognizing when that is happening if you like, this is the way my family responds, and we never learned how to repair. We never learned how to come back and say, actually, yeah, I didn't mean to say that, or it felt really uncomfortable and I didn't know what to do. And repair, the other thing I wanted to say, builds intimacy. And I think this is like that missing, I don't know if it's the missing piece. I think there's several, but when we think about relationship, we have to have repair. We have to have rupture and repair. That's how we get close. We don't get close by being perfect. Actually, perfection is a sign that there's trauma, right? And it's a trauma response. And so like, yeah, we need those moments. So maybe that's a good, I don't know if a challenge. I don't know if people like challenges, but like, like if something happens, pick a small thing. Like even if like you push your uncle aside. I'm always with my uncles. I don't know why,
Yeah.
but you push somebody aside and you get in front of them in line. Pick an easy one, but do a little repair. See what it feels like. You can practice these things too,
Mhm.
like little repairs at a time. Hey, I didn't mean to do that. I'm really sorry, or whatever, before we jump into the big ones. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's like start
Because
small.
yeah,
Be
start
like
small. Yeah. Build them, that muscle memory of like, oh, I'm gonna, say something. Because a lot of us are from families where secrecy, or there's a lot of shame, which means we don't talk about things. There's a lot of embarrassment, or just like, yeah, we don't talk about it. It's not something that we do here in this family. We kind of ride the awkwardness until it's over. I think that's super
Mm.
common.
Oh yeah. Oh my God. So common.
Yeah, I hear that a lot from folks. Yeah.
Same.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it just like so much of what I think about this whole conversation is coming back to like, why do we have boundaries at all? Our boundaries are there to enable our relationships, to help us be close to people, to help us
Mhm.
be in connection and in community with people that we care about. And they're just agreements we make with ourselves about how we're going to be, how we're going to take care
Yeah.
of ourselves, how we're going to be with others. And when we boil it down to that, we can start to see like, okay, this is so purposeful. This is
Yeah.
actually really kind. It's not selfish, it's giving, because it allows me
Mm.
to be the person I want to be with you.
Mhm. That's beautiful. That's a great way to kind of wrap this up, because
Mm,
I think it's such an important topic, and I know we hit a bunch of things, but it is a way to care for yourself and to really like be the person that you want to be. And again, I think I'll just say that there's a lot of things that we don't, we might need support around. We might need help from a professional, because some families can be super difficult, abusive, all the things. So we just, I don't want anyone out there to feel like this is some easy thing. We're talking about little things that we can do, different ways to look at things, hoping to give you some option and choices, and knowing that, sometimes more help is needed. So, I just want to thank you for being here today, Summer. Always a pleasure.
always a pleasure.
Yeah, I love sharing you with our community. I feel like
Mm.
it's a gift for them, and for me, I always learn something. And I just want to thank our community for showing up here, and just let you know that we're here for you. And if there's anything that we can do, we want you to reach out, and just know that you're not alone. So, Summer, we'll see you again soon.
All right. Happy holidays, everyone.
Okay.